It is often said that people come and go. But what are some reasons that make people come and stay? Each year, millions of visitors come to Hong Kong for various purposes. Vacation, business, studies, and some of them chose to stay. Official figures show that about 8% of Hong Kong's 7 million citizens are foreigners. What attracts these people to Hong Kong? And what makes them stay? We are very curious about that. I'm going to interview people from around the world who have chosen to stay in Hong Kong and get to know their personal stories of how they fell in love with our beautiful city. Without further ado, welcome to Hong Kong.
Now's the right time. Believe me, now's the right time. I know I found a good sign. I'm feeling a fire burn down below. Now's the right time. Believe me, how's about letting go? Leave your blues behind. 'Cause now's the right time. 'Cause now's the right time.
Si ya no sabes de qué lado estás, si ya no te puedes levantar, si te cuesta encontrar el momento que la vida vuela y tú vas lento.
Ciao, I'm Francesco from Italy.
No te daría miedo el azar, te inventarías a ti mismo escoger.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Come and Stay. Right next to me are Francesco from Italy.
Hello.
Hello, how do you say hello in Italian?
We say ciao.
Ciao. Even at night, is there a special way to say?
This is the casual way to say.
Ciao?
Normally you say ciao when you meet people, even when you leave, if you want. You can use it for any situation.
Okay, so that is our language lesson of the evening. Ciao! So Francesco, tell me, how long have you been here in Hong Kong?
I've been here for a long time. I came in 2006 actually.
2000. I can't do my math. Can you tell me how many years that is?
I think it's around 16 years.
What brought you here to Hong Kong in the very first place?
It's a long story. How long do you have?
The whole evening is for you,
I'll
Francesco.
I'll make it short.
Okay.
I came for work. Originally, I studied as an architect, so I worked a little bit in London, and then an opportunity came up. So I came here to work as an architect, which I did for a while. And then I transitioned into art. So
I mean, architecture does involve a bit of art, right? So I guess the architectural part of your studies
For sure.
gave you the basics, right?
For sure, there was always a connection there. There's a lot of sketching, a lot of drawing, so there was always that connection. And I always cultivated art on the side, so that was always part of my life. When I came to Hong Kong, I loved the place. And like I think someone told me one time, Hong Kong is full of people who came for 6 months and they're here for 20 years. So it's becoming my story too, in a way.
Ah, that's very true. You said you were an architect and then you got into art. I can totally see that artsy architectural appearance that you have, you know, the long hair. That's not something that everyone can carry, right? But obviously a soul like you, perfect for this look. These are hand-drawn by you, right?
Yes.
Tell us more about these.
So these are, my definition is I paint cityscapes or landscapes as well of Asia. I'm in love with Asia. I love traveling. I love exploring cities and landscapes of Asia, especially. Not only, but especially. In this case, we have 2 cityscapes. Of course, Hong Kong, my biggest love, and Macau.
So this is your painting of Macau, or I guess it's very quintessential of your paintings that I realize, aside from using paint, right, I realize you put some words on these, right? Because aside from the one that represents Macau, the one from Hong Kong also has quite a lot of fonts.
And actually, the way that I describe the technique is a mixed media technique. So the base will be acrylic, although sometimes I also use a little bit of oil. And then I add a lot of collage. So what you see are cutouts from magazines.
Yeah.
And sometimes I try to make the thing relate to the subject of the paint. Maybe, you know, I take a magazine from Macau in this case, or from India. Or maybe sometimes I travel and I keep receipts, bus receipts, restaurants' bills, and I embed them to create a connection between the place that I paint and the painting. Sometimes I even mix sand. I got a collection of sands at home.
Collection of sand.
Sands of places that I've been, or soil even.
That's a very interesting collection.
It's a nice collection, and I put them in some Muji bottles, and then I have some bigger bottles for mixing with the paint.
Okay.
And then I would put them into the mix, into the painting. So I create this in my mind. This connection between, I don't know, Bali and a painting about Bali with sand of Bali, tickets of Bali, newspapers, the language.
So these artworks that you create, right, in Hong Kong, what exactly gives you the inspiration? I realize there's a lot of cityscape. Do you also do paintings of people, or is it mainly landscape and things?
Because my background is more into architecture. I didn't study fine art, so I don't think my technique would be good enough to do a portrait with the shadows and very refined technique. So I created a technique for myself, really observing other people's styles and mixing with my own style to see what comes out. So I don't think I'm a very technical painter, if you want. It's more about the feelings, about the colors, the energy, right? This is what I think about myself.
So all these artworks that you have prepared for us, right? Do you normally sell them, or is this something just for your own collection?
I sell them. As a matter of fact, this is sold actually.
Okay.
Normally, after I finish a piece, I will put it on my wall. I look very carefully for a week if I see something that it is off.
That needs fine-tuning, right?
Fine-tuning. Many times I will change the colors of the sky, or just maybe it's in front of where I have dinner, so I look at it and then there's something that I don't like, I just change it.
Well, aside from expressing your thoughts through painting, I know you also are an author, right?
That's a big word. Thank you for using it. I put together a book. It's a combination of photography and text. And I've also involved and engaged many friends or fellow artists to help me. So sometimes they help me with photos, better photographers than me. And some people wrote essays for me, as well as I push myself to write a few things.
Okay.
So call me an author is
it's a big word.
It's a good, thank you for today, it's a good result of the day, but I have a book. Which I'll show it to you, and I want to give it to you as a present.
Okay.
So Vincent, since traveling is not perfect as we wish it would be, I would like to give you a Hong Kong postcard. You can send it to your friends overseas.
Thank you. Are these one of your own paintings as well?
This is one of my paintings.
Very, very fancy. Well, aside from this very fancy postcard, I know you have a very fancy book too, right? So we're going to talk about this book that you have for us.
Yes, so this was a big project. I think from conception to end, it took me 3 years. Although, designing, writing, just the idea. What I wanted to do was try to give the behind the scenes of a painting, where the inspiration comes from, how it's done, things about the technique, travels that inspire the painting, so that there is a little bit more something behind, right?
So there's more of a story.
There's a story, exactly. There's a story. So at the beginning, I talk about when I was in London and I started painting. So you see photos of London, as well as small shows that I did, and the paintings that I did a while ago. And then there's a section talking about my love for Hong Kong. So a lot of paintings about Hong Kong, similar to the one that we showed before. This is Sri Lanka, for example, a trip that I took with friends on the train in the tea plantations in Sri Lanka. Very nice.
So when you do these paintings, for example, when you're traveling abroad, right?
Yeah.
Do you sit there and you paint with a canvas right in front of that scene, or you take a photo? How does that work?
Yeah, I take photos as a reference. Every now and then I would do a little sketch. But to be honest, because it takes me a long time to paint, I also enjoy a bit of my memory and fantasy into it. It doesn't need to be super accurate. It's a mixture
of reality and fantasy, right?
Exactly. I want it to be a little bit more fantastic.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, you did mention that this book you actually put together with a few other friends, right? You said you enlisted the help of some friends.
Yes.
Are they also friends in Hong Kong, or how did that work out?
Most of the people, I would say, they are based in Hong Kong. Yeah, or at least they were based in Hong Kong when I wrote the book. So there's a lot of photographers or artists or architects. So some people wrote something, some people contributed photos. So it's really a collaborative work. I'm really interested in collaborations. In fact, one of the chapters in here talks about collaborations with schools, which I did quite a few by now. I did probably 15 big projects with school, generally kids, but not only, also university students. And we painted like massive paintings, like the length of this wall or even more.
So like a mural almost.
Murals. So the biggest project was done with a school in South Island. In that time, the involvement was 790 kids, aged from 4 to 8.
Wow.
Over a month. And when they say, hey, can you do it? I say, yeah, sure.
Why not, right?
And then every day, you know, I needed a stretcher to you know, come out from there. I was destroyed. It's really a tough job to work with small kids. Very rewarding, but very intense. And the brief was that each of those 790 kids would have to put something. And I always remember this shark. You know, this shark looks small to you, but it's probably like this.
Okay.
In scale. It looks like it can eat Llama Island.
Yeah, it's like a megalodon, right?
It's a gigantic.
So when you were telling me about this book, you mentioned a lot about travel, right? And I do realize you seem to love Asia a lot. I see you talk about India, Vietnam, and of course Hong Kong, right? What about Asia fascinates you so much?
I think from the European standpoint, you know, in Europe there's a lot of very pretty places, pretty cities, a lot of history. But
Very classical.
Classical, beautiful in Italy, in Germany, in France, wherever you go. But when I came to Asia the first time, before even coming to Hong Kong, I was hit by the energy of Asia. There's a vibe and an energy that we don't have there. And after living 6 months, I think, in Hong Kong, I went back to London, where I was coming from. I'd been living in London for a while. And I used to live in an area quite, you know, there's bars, restaurants, it's called Farringdon. So I went back, I came out from the MTR, from the airport, and it looked like dead. And you know, I still love London, not in a bad way, but compared to, now I'm in Causeway Bay, compared to, you know, the craziness of, and the energy of Causeway
It's all
Bay,
relative, right?
it's just, you know, everything looks short for a start. The building that I remember were very tall are short now, and there's one person here, one person there, one person there. In Causeway Bay, is just everything is happening. So I got hooked to this feeling of the energy of Asia.
Understood. Well, I'm very happy to hear that you love Hong Kong and you love everything about Asia.
Leave your blues behind, 'cause now's the right time. 'Cause now's the right time. Leave your blues behind, 'cause now's the right time. 'Cause now's the right time.
Aside from the Noodle Association, I'm also aware that Francesco is bringing me coffee today. He said it's actually quite important to the Italian diet as well, which is why today, aside from the noodles, I'll be giving him a version of Hong Kong's beverage that everyone enjoys, which also contains coffee. And that will be the cold yun yang, which is basically a mix of milk tea and coffee. Let's go in and get our food. Here I have a piping hot bowl of wonton noodles in my hands. These look so good because I don't know about you, but for me, every time I come back to Hong Kong, I always want to get myself a nice bowl of wonton noodles. The Cantonese version of wonton, I feel like, has that very thin skin and very fresh, we call it bouncy prawn that's inside the dumpling, the wonton itself. Very, very special to the Hong Kong diet. Aside from that, the noodles, some people say it's difficult to digest, but for me, I think it's amazing because it really gives a very nice, also same bouncy texture to complement the wontons. And of course, when you have something that's a little savory, a little salty, you want something a little sweet to balance it out, which is why we have our yun yang right next to it. A very perfect drink to complement any Hong Kong dish. It's silky milk tea mixed with the very nice caffeine punch of coffee. Francesco is waiting for us, so we have to bring this back to him right now. Hello, Francesco. Nice to see you without your mask on because it's meal time. So what we have for you today is obviously another Hong Kong staple.
Wow.
You've been here for 16 years, so you know what this is, right?
Of course. This is wonton min, I guess, right?
Precisely.
And dong lai cha, I think, right?
You will know later when you taste this, so keep this under a bit of suspense, but this one is a wonton min. This is a test of your chopstick skills. Especially when some of my friends visit from the States or when they visit from abroad. Obviously, the noodles that we have in the States, they do chow mein and things like that, but nothing plays that chewiness that the noodles, egg noodles that Hong Kong.
This is really good,
restaurants
actually.
offer, right?
This is very nice. This is definitely one of my favorite. There was a place before, I think they shut it down close to my house. There's one in Wellington Street. If I have a craving for this, yes.
Because I personally love wontons. I think it's something that's very easily prepared, right? You can just boil it, have some frozen at home. Yeah, so yep, here we have this wonton noodle soup for you. Another thing we have for you, obviously, aside from the soup is probably MSG, so I don't want you to finish the soup, right? So we gave you a little beverage here on the side. You guessed milk tea.
I think it could be two things. I would say dong lai cha for sure, or it could be a yin yang. Let me see.
What is it?
I think it's yin yang.
It is a dong yin yang, so it's actually 50% coffee, 50% milk tea. So funny, Francesco was like, I know you. But do you know the meaning behind yin yang?
I don't know.
You do not know?
I don't know.
Yin yang is actually a bird. I think it's actually one of a Asian typical type of water bird. It typically comes in pairs, which is a male and a female, and they come together in a flock. And apparently they look quite different. Like the male and the female, it's kind of like a hen and a rooster, right?
Okay.
So they look quite different, but they always are together. So which is why they called this the yin yang, because they're actually the same breed, but they're the same species of bird, but they look quite different and they're always together. So the fact that they kind of, mix the coffee and the milk tea together, it's kind of like how the yin yang flock together. One funny thing I heard about the yin yang, one time I brought this to one of my teachers back at school when I was studying in the States. I said, have you ever tried mixing milk tea with coffee? And she said, no, that's like mixing my morning and my afternoon together. It doesn't make sense. So to some people, the idea of a yin yang is quite shocking. But like Francesco, right? You probably tried this only when you came here to Hong Kong, right? And it seems like you liked it.
Of course, the first time you question it, like your friend. But when you drink it, I think it's a very interesting, it's a good taste.
Right?
It's a good taste.
But yeah, aside from, mixing the morning and afternoon together, we also like yin yang because it's actually quite a nice mix of Eastern culture and Western culture, right? Because Hong Kong is really a melting pot.
You're right.
Of cultures. Milk tea, very local Hong Kong. But coffee, it's actually something from the West, right? So when you're mixing milk tea and coffee together, it's basically mixing East and West together. So the yin yang idea also comes into play like that.
I'm having an epiphany right now. This
Right?
is exactly what it is.
Right?
This is Hong Kong. It's East meets West. Exactly. Thank you for phrase it that way.
What is this?
This is coffee.
Okay.
Homemade Italian coffee.
But coffee is so widespread all over the world. Why do you think this represents Italy?
It's one of the things that represent Italy, of course, not the only one, and not only, it doesn't represent only Italy. But I am a big coffee drinker. So a lot of Italians are. You will go to the coffee in the morning. So this is probably common to all Mediterranean countries in Europe, so not just Italy. But I feel like it's a pretty representational one. Maybe I should have brought a pizza, but I don't have a oven. So I made it easy on myself. I hope I didn't make it too strong.
Oh, wow. This is some very good coffee.
Thank you.
You said this is Italian coffee. Is this made with Italian-grown coffee beans, or how did it work?
The coffee beans, I don't know. I think normally they come from South America and then they roast them in Italy. I use an Italian brand machine, the one that you put on top like this and then put it on the fire and make that nice noise in the morning. So it's and the smell. So yeah,
it's so fragrant and it's very nutty. Is nutty the right word for this coffee that you brought me? Now that you said espresso, this actually came to mind, right? The word like espresso and latte, those are actually Italian words, right?
Yes. Exactly. So espresso obviously means something very fast, express, right? Latte, I think it comes from cafe latte, which is what your mom will make for you when you are a kid. She will make a bowl of warm milk with a little bit of, a drop of coffee because you are young, and then you just, dip the cookies or the biscuits before going to school. So cafe latte is the home version.
And also, another thing came to mind, tiramisu, right? That's an Italian dessert.
Yes.
And obviously tiramisu has coffee infused. I think the name tiramisu itself means to...
Yeah, tiramisu means exactly pick you up, because I guess the combination of eggs, sugar, coffee, you're ready to play football or run a race. So don't eat it too late in the evening, otherwise it's gonna be hard to sleep. But if you need energy, if you need a little bit of a pick up, yes.
But yeah, obviously you showed me Italian coffee today, right? We knew this in advance, which is why we gave you Yunyang.
Oh.
Right, because a drink for a drink,
Of
right?
course,
We gave you
of
a Hong
course.
Kong local drink
Of
for
course.
it. And actually our director also recommended that we get wonton mein today, because this is Hong Kong style type of noodles, right? And in Italy, you have a love for spaghetti, right? But the funny thing, guys, is Francesco, after we cut our camera earlier, he said, "Oh, this wonton noodle tastes better than spaghetti."
This is good. Better than pasta. Better than spaghetti, this one.
Well, since we're talking about Italian cuisine, right? I realize in Hong Kong, Italian cuisine is obviously very out there, very popular. People love Italian food. I love Italian food. We can also very easily get Italian food in Hong Kong, I believe.
Yeah.
But it's actually marked very, very expensive, right?
Really?
Yeah, Italian food is almost always associated with fine dining. You realize that, right? What are your thoughts on that? If it's so expensive in Hong Kong, would you rather cook at home, or do you think there are some more affordable, authentic Italian options in Hong Kong?
I generally don't go too much to Italian restaurants. I cook at home if I want. And you're right, there's a few ones that are expensive.
Yeah.
Depends also what you want to have. If you want to have a pizza, it can be a little bit cheaper.
All right, yeah, I love a good meal Italian food, but like I said earlier, some of them, they charge you so much for just like a small little portion of spaghetti. But anyway, I'm sure most people in Hong Kong love Italian food. So guys, if you want to hit up a good Italian restaurant, slide your DMs into Francesco's SMS. So Francesco, in the eyes of an artist, how would you describe Hong Kong? You've been here for such a long time, you probably have a more artistic insight of how the city is, right?
What strikes me the most is the vibrancy, the energy, the colors, whatever color may be represented with, and this crazy combination of the city and the nature.
Yeah. So if you were to describe Hong Kong, in the eyes of an artist, what do you think Hong Kong is like?
So there's so many things to Hong Kong, that's a difficult question. For sure, there's a lot of energy, vibrancy, and then this amazing mixture between the city and the nature with the islands, the sea, and I can imagine, the ferry just going across the bay and these beautiful shiny buildings. Just the energy in the street, the food in the streets, right? Amazing, the markets. So too many things to contain in one answer, I think.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you very much for having me.
A pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
We love your art. We love hearing all your stories. Love the coffee. Realize that Italians do love their coffee. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be back next week. Ciao.
Ciao.
Sitting on a fortune, only waiting for the best of us to hold up to a circumstance.